So for this first episode, we're going to be interviewing each other so you get to know us. But John, let me ask you, since you came up with this idea, how did this come to be?
Well, that's a great question, Scott. And it's funny. It's as we talk about the universe playing a role, little did I know there was another person named Scott Stathis out there that was on the same wavelength, thinking about something very similar. But the way that it actually came about was I was thinking through all the podcasts and how a lot of them are similar. And I thought about, why not make something a little bit more fun? I have a big passion for music, and it turns out so many others in the industry also have the same passion. And as I was running around talking to people about it, one of our mutual friends, Mr. Andrew Saxa, said, "You've got to meet Scott Stathis." And boy, was he right. And I couldn't be happier that he made that introduction. And so here we are today. And as I said, you were thinking something very similar from a different side of the universe. And we came together to put this show together.
Yeah, it's really cool. So, and you can probably relate to this. So during the pandemic, when we all went virtual and we're talking to people that we interact with professionally, and all of a sudden we're seeing them in their houses, how many times did you see, like, in the background, guitars or musical instruments, and like, hey, you play guitar, or you play this, you play that? And I started realizing at that point how many people in the financial services industry are also passionate about music and play instruments and are either in bands or just play for their own therapeutic benefit or whatever it is. And so when you came to me with your idea and said, hey, let's combine, music with financial services, I'm like, that's a brilliant idea. Let's go with it. Right. So that's kind of how it all started. So let's tell our stories, John. Why don't you start? So let the listeners know how you became interested in music and what instruments do you play, and, what your favorite genre is, etc.
Well, that's a great question, but I'm going to pose that to you first, Scott, because one of the things that I loved when I met you first was your story and how you got into music and what it's done for you personally, initially, and then, kind of where you've taken it today. So how did you first become interested in music?
Yeah, well, so way back when I was 13, actually, 12 or 13, so I was in a church youth group, and some of my friends wanted to form a band for this competition called Sights and Sounds, which is this big annual competition in New Jersey where I grew up. And that's not where I am anymore. I've moved around a lot. But anyway, so they put a band together, and I always loved music, and I was jealous that they were getting to put a band together. So I would go to their practices. And one day I was sitting behind the guitar amplifier, and they were playing songs. There was no drummer, and I'm just tapping on the amplifier. And we had a girl who played guitar, and she looked at me after they finished the song, and she said, "Hey, you were tapping in perfect beat there. You should play drums." And I'm like, "I don't know how to play drums." And they said, "Well, we'll rent you a drum kit." So they did that, and they sat it in front of me. In the next practice, I joined them behind the drums, and I actually knew what I was doing somehow, even though I set up the drum kit all wrong. I kept the beat. They invited me to join the band. We practiced for, I don't know, maybe it was 2 months, and we went into the Sights and Sounds competition, and we took first place, which was crazy.
That is amazing. And I think the other part of your story that really hit home for me was you mentioned that you were a little bit of an introvert in high school.
Yeah, so, I joined that band. We won the competition. It got me into music. I loved playing the drums. I learned more formally how to do it, not by taking lessons, but just by watching other drummers on, remember the TV series In Concert way back when, it was on Sunday nights, I think, or Saturday nights, whatever. So I put a band together in my high school, and we started playing high school dances. The band got very popular, and we started playing at other high schools as well. And we got regularly booked. So I was shy. I was an introvert, and now I'm a drummer in a rock band, and it started getting some attention. And when when somebody told me that the girlfriend of the captain on the football team really liked me and not him, I was like, oh, this is working.
That's
Like
when
this.
you knew. That's when the real light bulb went off. You're like, wait a minute.
That's right. So yeah, we're in high school playing all the high school dances, getting all this attention. And I started coming out of my shell and being less introverted and more social. And it went from there. And that band, I ended up putting four bands together in my youth all the way through college. And, they were professional bands. We were playing in New York City. We were opening for some pretty decent acts. And we were a long hair rock band back then. So yeah, it was a ton of fun.
Wow. I mean, that story is just amazing. I think that you probably share that story with so many introverts out there. And it's funny, there's one of those band schools. One of my friends runs one, and I went there a few times to check it out. Amazing. And then I went to see the kids portion. They went out and had all the kids bands playing at literal bars. And what I saw at the school of how timid and shy they were, to when I saw them on stage and the fun that they were having together and how it brought them out of their shells, it was such a beautiful thing to see with my own eyes. And so I can relate that story to your high school days, and can see how music can be such a benefit to young folks that may be struggling to fit in, because everybody fits in when it comes to music.
Oh yeah. I mean, music, it not only is it such a passion, but it is literally a method of communication, right? It's a language in it of itself. And when you're playing with other musicians and you start, quote, talking, unquote, to each other through your instruments, and you get locked in and you're in that flow and you're making music together that actually sounds good, that is a connection that you cannot get any other way, literally. I mean, there's a whole feel to that, being in a band and picking up on the vibe and making it work together. It's way cool. Just rewinding a little bit, I mentioned, through high school and college, I was in a band and we played in New York City. So I have to qualify that the drinking age at the time was 17. So that's how I got to play in all these New York City clubs when I was young, because I was legal back then, which was nuts.
That is hilarious. So back to me, my musical journey isn't quite as fun as yours, but what is interesting is that my mother was a singer and has a really amazing life. She dropped out of high school and was trying to figure things out, extremely smart. And she was running around in the jazz bars back in those days. And she ended up becoming really good friends with, believe it or not, Count Basie, Al Jarreau. In fact, Al Jarreau introduced my mother to my father. And so I certainly had it in the blood. And on top of that, as I was born, my mother would run me around with my father to the various clubs where he was playing. My mother didn't drink, and I was a little baby running around in clubs. So I was exposed to really amazing jazz musicians as a baby. Don't remember it, but I'm sure that my insides remember it, because that's where that passion is really driven, is from our insides. We feel it, right? And so I can imagine that made an impact on me early on, even in the womb. And so, yeah, I love the fact that music, has gotten back into my life. One of my good friends, Ed Ash, he's always had a guitar by his side going back to our high school days. And so he'd always break it out and we'd be singing around a bonfire. And so that's kind of where my journey began, but I never picked it up. I played trumpet in junior high for 1 year, but then didn't think it was cool and went on to play sports. Little did I know how cool it actually was. And I sort of regret not sticking with it. But about 6 years ago, I decided to pick the guitar up again. And what a great time to do so, because today's technology really can help with that journey. If you can learn 4 or 5 chords on a guitar, you can just about play any song known to man. And that really blew me away. And so now I can play a few hundred songs, not by memory, but I don't have to, because I've got my iPhone in my hand with all the songs, all the lyrics, all the spaces where those chords would be played, and it couldn't be easier. So, for those of you on the fence of whether you should do it, there really has never been a better time to get started than now.
Yeah, yeah, dive in. I mean, it is amazing what technology has done for learning music and even YouTube, right? You can take lessons off of YouTube, right? They're just it's all there. So yeah, that's cool. So and you play basically for yourself. You know, I call it therapy, right? Music therapy. You haven't played out in front of other people. Have you even played for your family?
You know, I was always very nervous about that, and I never really felt this need to do it. It really was a personal journey for me initially. But it turns out, my wife loves when I play and sing things because I know what she likes, and we have very similar interests there. My son, believe it or not, actually likes when I play. And the only time I've really played in front of other folks than that is down on the beach with my buddy Ed. We'll pop an umbrella down there, bring a few beers, and next thing you know, we've got a crowd. And I'll tell you, I have met some amazing musicians on the beach. In fact, one guy was so good, we're like, why are you not out recording? He played us an original one day and it blew us away. And I made the mistake of not recording it because for sure it would have been a hit. So for me, again, it is therapeutic. I now that we're doing this, I'm considering going to play with a friend of mine that they have a whole musical setup and getting the feel for playing a band because I can imagine how much fun that must be. With that said, can you expand on your story a little bit? So I know that you got into the band, formed a band in high school. That brought you out of your shell. You took that forward into college, and then you came to a crossroads as you were graduating. Am I going to be a musician for the rest of my life, or am I going to go into the corporate world and work like everybody else? So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that experience and kind of where that led?
Yeah. Yeah. So, through college, we had a working band. Like I said, we were playing clubs in New York. We were making some money, but I was getting close to graduating college, and certainly it wasn't enough money to live off of. So I made a commitment to myself. I said, well, if we're not making enough money with the band by the time I graduate college, I'm going to start doing some job interviews, and whatever pans out first will be the path I go down. And so as graduation day came, I did get a few job interviews, and I had to cut my hair because we were a long hair rock band, a la Van Halen. I mean, that was it was those days, right? So
Yeah, that's gonna have to be something where we bring out some old photos because I've got to see that for sure.
oh yeah, they do exist. So I cut my hair without telling my bandmates, and then the very next practice that I showed up at, they're like, "What the f? What did you do?" And I'm like, well, you can't fire me because I formed this band, so you're just gonna have to deal with it.
That is too
But
funny.
yeah, but I ended up getting a job. The band dissolved eventually, and I didn't play drums for a long time. So, oh man, it was years and years and years and years. I didn't play any drums other than every once in a while I would meet a band and I'd go, I'd see them at a club and they let me sit behind the drums for a song or two. And 5 years ago, a little more than 5 years ago, by mistake, I put a band together. And the way that happened was I'm an avid mountain biker, and I was also a lacrosse coach for the youth lacrosse league that both my daughters played in. And one of my mountain biking buddies was also the president of the youth lacrosse league. He played guitar and was taking vocal lessons at the time. So he told me that. I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. One of the other girls on my team, her mom told me that her husband, who I hadn't met yet, is a guitar player and had been in and out of bands for his whole life. So I said, oh, I have to meet him. His name is Ed. So I met Ed. We got along right off the bat. I said, Ed, you got to meet my buddy John, who's taking vocal lessons and plays the guitar, because we would all have a good time together. And I introduced them. We went to a concert together, went to see Joe Bonamassa. which if you don't know Joe Bonamassa, anybody listening, you need to, if you like blues, kind of rock blues, he's amazing. So we went to see that concert, and then we had a blast. We're like, all right, we should get together and jam. So we did in Ed's basement. We got together at 7:30 on a Thursday night, a little more than 5 years ago, and we started playing music, and we were just having a great time. And it was just ad hoc. We were literally jamming. And so we played until about midnight, and then, we all had to work the next day. So the three of us, and we said, all right, we should probably cut it off. And Ed said, all right, but before you guys leave, you have to try just one sip of this new tequila that I found. That was a mistake. So he went upstairs to tequila, run it downstairs, poured us each a shot. And we're like, oh, this is really good tequila. So this is Casamigos when Casamigos was first getting popular. So we said, more, please. So we had more tequila and we started playing music again. Well, at 2:30 in the morning, that bottle was pretty much gone, and we were still playing music, and we looked at each other and we said, all right, this is a school night, quote unquote. We should probably shut it down. I'm sure your wife is not happy with the fact that we're still playing, Ed, even though we're in your basement. So we shut it down at 2:30 after having a really good time. We got together one more time, had fun, and we decided, all right, let's go out and do some open mics. So the first open mic we did, we knew 4 songs. We played 3 of those 4 songs, and it actually went pretty well. And when we were done playing, this woman comes out from behind the bar and walks up to us and says, hey, you guys are really good. Do you want to play the Concord, Massachusetts Oktoberfest? We're like, how much have you had to drink? Okay. So she said, seriously, we'd like to have you guys play. And so we said, all right, we can maybe do that. So she told me, tomorrow I'm going to have the president of the Rotary Club call you because they're the one that's producing this thing. Sure enough, the next day I get a call from this woman who said, hey, we want you to play. We want you to play an hour set. What's the name of your band and how much do you charge? And I'm like, let me get back to you. We're in the process of changing our name. I'm just making stuff up, right? So I sent a text to John and Ed, and I said, you guys, we got to get on a conference call. And they're like, what? I said, just get on a call. So we have a call, and I said, I got the call, and they want to know what the name of the band is, if we can play an hour, and how much we're going to charge. And Ed's first response was, I can't believe we're having this conversation. So do you want to do it? And they're all like, yeah, let's go for it. So, we knew 4 songs. We had to learn 10 to fill an hour. So we had 6 more to learn. I said, all right, well, we got to tell the name of the band and how much we charge. And we didn't have any name of the band. So we're throwing around all these names, most of which are really stupid. And then it finally dawned on me. I said, hey, guys, stop. Remember when we said we were going to stop playing at midnight? And Ed, you said, first, you got to try just one sip of this new tequila. They're like, yeah. And I said, the name of our band is Just One Sip. Like, perfect. Let's go with it, right? So,
oh my God, that's great.
5 years ago, we decided we weren't going to try. We found out it was a charity event. So we told them, just whatever you would pay us, just donate it to the charity. We're good. We don't need to charge. We learned 6 more songs. We played an hour set. It was great. I had a great time. And then we got another gig from there. I mean, we did one more open mic. We had this, it was a spontaneous open mic, and this one guy and his wife were having a great time with us, and they were dancing and everything else. Turned out they were pretty lit. More funny, it turns out he was the chief of police in the neighboring town. So he said to us that night, he said, hey dudes, I'm running a 30-year Pike frat reunion at UMass Amherst. Do you want to play at it? And we're like, sure. It's our second gig. So our second gig was a 3-hour gig at a frat reunion at UMass Amherst, and that was like off the rails. And ironically, that was a charity event as well. One of the frat brothers had passed away a month before. They were donating all proceeds to the he died of specific kind of cancer to that cause. So he said, I don't charge for that either. And this guy, Ed, the chief of police, just said, open your guitar case, for tips. Some of these guys have done pretty well. To this day, it was the most money we made in a single night. there were, I mean, give you an example. At the end of the night, we played American Girl, Tom Petty. Um, First time we ever played it, I didn't think we played it that well. There was one guy that came up to us. He thought we played it really well. He said, "You guys, that was effing awesome." And he peels $100 bill out of his wallet and throws it into the guitar case. Like, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, that story I knew we had to share with our audience because your journey has been very interesting to say the least. And I just love that, you went from, coming out of your shell to starting a band to continuing that on, then getting into the real world. And then again, the universe brought you together with some friends. You formed a band and you became a band out of nowhere, and it's just a very beautiful story of how music came back into your life and how it continues to make an impact on your life and all those that get to hear you guys play. So it's exactly what the idea of this whole podcast was about. So, this being the intro podcast for Jammin and Plannin, the other part of what we wanted to talk about is kind of, what we do in the industry, because again, we also have a passion for financial services. And so if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about what you do in financial service, a little bit about your background and kind of how you're supporting the financial services industry today.
Yeah, sure. So I'm part of three different LLCs. The primary one, or the one that I've had the longest, is called Stathis Partners. We're a financial services research and consulting organization, very specifically focused on banks and credit unions that have investment services and wealth management arms. And we help them optimize what they do. But we also collect a bunch of data from that channel on a monthly basis and a superset of data on an annual basis. And we aggregate that data and send it back out to the industry in the form of benchmarks and KPIs. So they can assess their programs from a strengths and weaknesses standpoint and see how they stack up relative to industry averages, industry quartiles, peer groups of their own design. We have an online portal where they can see their performance and industry performance and design their own peer group and generate a bunch of reports relative to the performance of their program. So things like average advisor productivity, product mix, revenue penetration, household revenue penetration, growth of a fee-based advisory business. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff they can do with that. And that, that leads into, we've been looking at data for so long. We know exactly what best practices looks like and which organizations out there are doing better job than others. And, we tend to interview the people running those organizations. So we define best practices because we know all those people, right? I mean, I've been in this for a long time. We know the people running those organizations. So we can share best practices. We do research reports. We do a series of executive retreats where we bring a group of 30 executives at a time together for 2.5 days. And we talk about best practices and have some fun as well. We do some recreational activities combined with, business roundtables and case studies and think tank type stuff. We actually have 4 podcast series now with the other LLCs. So there's that, and a lot of that is consulting. We do a lot of due diligence consulting for banks and credit unions looking to change broker dealers or bring on broker dealers or start a wealth program. The other LLC is an offshoot of what I just described. And it is the one that does the podcasts and the executive retreats. That's the second. The third LLC is called the Adaptus Group. It is new, and the focus of that, the primary product of that LLC is called Leadership Academy. It's a 1-year program for executives running investment and wealth management programs in banks and credit unions that starts with a 3-day boot camp and then has monthly follow-up with custom designed development plans for program management and leadership development. So those are the three things that I do. But I should ask you the same question because, I mean, we got together because we're both in the financial service industry and we both love music. So what do you do? And how does that contribute to the industry?
So I kind of fell into financial services and, part of the work I do today is in behavioral science and understanding oneself. And one thing I discovered was I'm spontaneous and I'm a high risk taker. To nobody's surprise that really knows me, I guess. And so I again fell into financial services. I was in the restaurant business for years. I was chasing the girls around for way too long in Georgetown in Washington D.C. and actually transferred to Florida with one of the companies I was managing restaurants for. Ended up opening my own restaurant, had that for about 5 years called Tequila Sunrise Mexican Cafe. Sold that in 2000, was looking for something else to do. A friend of mine's cousin was working for Edward Jones, and that was in 99 when things seemed to be pretty easy, and he loved it. He was gone maybe a year later, but it sounded great, right? I was going to be a financial advisor. I was going to have my own office. I was going to have an assistant. It was going to be just this beautiful dream job. And little did I know that it was a sales job, right? And I had never actually done formal sales before. So it was a real eye awakener for me. But I had a young family to support. And so I put my head down and went out and did what I did best, which was go around and meet people in the community, introduce myself, develop relationships. And I built my practice in that manner. I did that for about 17 years. And then I decided to sell. I was ready for a change. And so I did sell about 4 years ago. And then I'm again sitting around wondering, what am I going to do? And I felt like I had a lot of experience that other advisors could tap into. And so I decided to start a company called Connected Consultants. And the idea was to utilize my experience as an advisor, both good and bad, because I made plenty of mistakes along the way, especially due to my spontaneity. And I discovered that through Connected Consultants by my work that I did with DNA Behavior that has a natural behavior assessment. That's where I was able to pinpoint where I was going when I felt, under duress or stress. Your strongest behavioral factors are going to be amplified. And so when I look back throughout my life, I could see where that was coming back to haunt me regularly. And it's really enabled me to stop that pattern. And so that was, where I really got interested in technology and data. And again, I love to introduce people and connect people. So the idea around Connected Consultants was being able to utilize that strength. And so we partnered up with a bunch of different technology platforms that can help advisors and firms grow their practices, scale their practices. And so, we work with firms like Estate Guru that enables advisors to be able to do in-house estate planning, DNA Behavior, helping people kind of understand themselves and understand their teammates on a different level. We're talking to a couple other really interesting firms as we speak. And so again, the idea was really to be a resource for advisors on things that we see that are working out there that are helping advisors prospect better, grow amazing practices, understand the different ways to affiliate with firms. And I think today there's never been a better time to become an advisor because of all of that and the amazing integrated technology that's out there and available. And so I've been lucky enough to surround myself with some of the, most amazing, top quality, financial services professionals. And we all try to help each other with introductions and ideas. And so that's kind of what we do in our day-to-day job.
Nice. So you have a interest in combining your professional life, right, with music, and that's part of the reason for this podcast. You've come across others in the industry that definitely have a passion for music, and I get the impression, I could be wrong, that there's a lot of musicians in our industry somehow. I don't know if it's that personality type that breeds good advisors, but I mean, I've noticed that, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I was actually surprised, but you hit it on the head with, Zoom really got us to take a look behind the curtain, right? And it's a way for people to share their outside passions, and nobody ever says anything, right? I can think of, when I had a conversation with Adam Holt and he had his guitar on the wall. My guitar has always been on the wall, and I would highly recommend that anybody plays guitar, make sure it's somewhere they can see it regularly, so that they will be it'll be front and center when they feel like grabbing it and playing, because otherwise it can get a lot of dust on it if you're not careful. And so I've been really pleasantly surprised with how many professionals in financial services have a huge passion for music. And that was the other idea, is to be able to help those folks bring those passions to life, build an amazing community around that, where we can all share in our personal passion of music and other things, and then also share in introductions and ideas around what we do in financial services as well.
Yeah. Well, maybe let me close with the fortunate occurrence that I've had to combine music with my career. And this evolved over the last couple of years. So as I mentioned, we do these executive retreats where we bring roughly 30 people together at a time for 2.5 days to discuss best practices, and we have some fun as well. So a couple of years ago, my band started playing one of the nights of those retreats. So we basically throw a party with live music. So, I say my band formed 5 years ago. We've ever since then been playing out regularly, and it amazes us still that people pay us to play. So we have regular gigs. So we now regularly do our retreats as well. So we have one coming up next week, matter of fact, and there are 4 different financial service professionals that are coming that are going to be on stage with us playing music at different times during the night. So we get to combine, music with our professional lives and have some fun. And what is amazing about that is that, you spend the day in these roundtable discussions discussing strategies and tactics for our industry. And then at night, people have their jeans and their t-shirts on and their, drinks in hand, and they get up on stage and they start playing guitar or playing whatever, or playing the tambourine or singing, and just having a great time. And talk about bonding and making relationships in the industry. That brings it to a next level, right? Yeah. So I feel very lucky that I've been able to do that, combine those two things, and really have a blast doing it, and have it be a value added to the people that attend our executive retreats.
Yeah, no, I that's what it's all about. And so you're living what we're promoting. And I love that about you. And again, it's funny, the universe definitely worked its magic and brought us together. And I look forward to kind of following in your footsteps and hopefully attending one of these retreats one day and jumping up on the stage with you guys and having some fun there. So with that said, was there anything else that we wanted to share as this introductory Jammin and Plannin podcast comes to an end?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I just all of you being the listeners, that our plan is to invite a variety of people from our industry, from the financial services industry, to be on this podcast to talk about their musical experiences, their musical journey, and how they combine it with their professional life, and how it's affected their lives and the fun that they've had, and share some fun stories, and just create a community of people that are passionate about what they do in business and passionate about music. So this is the beginning of our journey, and we hope that you all continue to join us. And this is the start. And one of the things, John, you and I talked about is that if this takes off and we start building a community, maybe we'll have an annual jamming and planning get together where everybody comes with instruments and we have a big financial planning jam.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So again, so happy we met, Scott. This has been a blast for the first episode. We want to thank you all for joining us today.
And we hope you had as much fun tuning in as we did putting it all together.
Don't forget to check out the links below to hear what we are all working on musically.
And hey, while we always have amazing guests lined up for our episodes, please let us know if you would like to be a guest or if you know somebody who should be.
And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast series today.
And until next time,
keep on jamming
and keep on planning.